Today we're looking at lesson 10.5 on the Pythagorean theorem. This is for algebra. So many of you have probably heard of this before, but we're going to explain this a little bit more. So this is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And the Pythagorean theorem is only used for right triangles. And what it's used for is to try and figure out what different parts of the right triangles are. So the legs are going to be the A's and the B's, and the C is called the hypotenuse. And a lot of people ask, well, how do you know which one is which, depending on how they've written the triangle? And you would know because the C, or the hypotenuse, is always across from where the right angle is. It's also considered your longest side. And then the A and the B are usually able to be switched. So sometimes you might see this as B and this as A. And the reason why you can do that is because way back when we were doing properties, the commutative property says that you can switch addition and it'll still be the same thing. So if I did B squared plus A squared, it really wouldn't matter if you put in A for B or B for A, because you could switch it around and it'll still be the same. So the main part is to get the C correct. Now we'll go back to this one in a second, but the converse of the Pythagorean theorem is that if we don't know that it's a right triangle, we can use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out whether it's a right triangle or not. And we'll do an example of that in a little bit. So the first one, we're trying to find the missing side here using just the Pythagorean theorem. We know it's a right triangle because it has a right angle indicated here. We are labeled our hypotenuse with C, and we have our two legs. So I'm going to use one leg and another leg, put that in for A and B, and then it's going to be equal to C squared, so I'm going to solve for C. So 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64. We're going to add that together. 36 plus 64 is going to give us 100. And 100 equals C squared. To get C by itself, when you have a squared, you take what's called the square root on each side. So the square root of 100 is 10. And that would be C. The next one, notice they give us different parts here. So they give us one side, and then they give us A, and then they give us the hypotenuse, or C. So we're going to plug in, we have A squared plus 12 squared for B, and then equals 16 squared. This time we're going to solve for A. So A squared plus 144 equals 256. We're going to get A by itself, so we have to subtract 144. And we get A squared equals 112. Now if we take the square root of 112, 112 is not considered a perfect square, meaning it's not going to be an exact answer. It's going to be about, and we're going to round it to about 10.6. And that would be A. And then the next one, we're given a boat sail, and it tells us, suppose the longest side of the sail is 30 feet. Well, the longest side is always your hypotenuse across from your right angle. So 30 goes there. The shortest side is 14. In this case, again, it doesn't really matter which one you put as 14. But if you're doing longest and shortest, usually the shortest is A. So we're going to do 14 as A. And then we're going to find the height, which we'll consider as B in this case. So 14 squared plus B squared equals 30 squared. And we're going to solve for B. So we get 196 plus b squared equals 30 squared, which is 900. Subtract 196. We get b squared equals 704. And again, this is not going to give us a whole number, so we're going to approximate b is about the square root of 704, which gives us 26.5. And that's feet. The next two we're going to do is to determine whether it's a right triangle or not. So we can do that because we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem and see if it works. So if we're given three sides, 30, 40, and 50, we're going to do, just in order, 30 squared plus 40 squared equals 50 squared, and we're going to see if that's the same. So 30 squared is 900. 40 squared is 1600, and 50 squared is 2500. So is 900 plus 1600 2500? Yes. So 2500 equals 2500. So you can say yes here. This is a right triangle. We're going to do the same thing with the next one. So 6 squared plus 12 squared equals 18 squared. We get 36 plus 144 equals 324. And 36 plus 144 is 180. So 180 does not equal 324. So we're going to say no, this is not a right triangle. And that concludes lesson 10.5 on the Pythagorean theorem.